What's up, everybody? Let's get things started here. Matt, I'm hearing something in my ear. Are you guys hearing this? I'm hearing part of the clip in my ear, Matt. Can you guys what's up? Matt, can you I'm hearing the audio in my ear. All right, everybody give me a test. Let me know if I'm good here. Matt, can you comment for me if I'm live? Are we live? Somebody let me know if they see me here. Jack's got me. Okay, we're live. Appreciate you, Jack. Okay, so that was a fun little intro. But welcome to the Sharp Football Show, our most exciting introduction of the football season, the most bizarre introduction. But we're here now, and we have a really short, really concise show for you today. But what we're going to be delivering is a couple of announcements, as well as a deep dive into the Super Bowl referee for this game, his potential impact on this game, and setting the stage for what's to come, so that you guys know where we stand here from a betting perspective for the Super Bowl, as well as for a kind of a spread perspective. We're still sitting here with the Kansas City Chiefs on the Friday before the Super Bowl. So we're what, like 9 days away. Kansas City is still holding steady at being favored by 9.5 points. The total has dipped down from 49.5 to 49. Some spots are showing 48.5. We've got DK showing 48.5. We've got Chris showing 48.5, but most everybody else is still sitting at 49 points on this total. Props have been out for a while now. We had the Westgate unveiling of props last night at the Superbook out there in Las Vegas. For those that know, this is obviously an annual occurrence. It's one of the bigger nights of the year for the Westgate, something from a publicity standpoint that they do. But for those of you that don't know, way back in the day, before all sports betting was legalized and before props were all over the place, they used to have a special night out at the Westgate Superbook where they would open up the betting for all their props. They would post their first numbers on tons of different props, including cross-sport props, matchup props, you name it. Westgate Sportsbook on the Thursday, about 10 days before the Super Bowl, they would post all of their props. So it was a massive deal. We'll get news coverage. All different types of newspapers from the East Coast would go out there, cover this unveiling of the props, and everybody who is betting them, you can place your bet, go get back into the line. You could bet 2 props, you get back into the line at the end of the line, and you do it all over again. So I know a couple of guys who were out there last night. There's a little bit less fanfare and excitement now that sports betting has been legalized and now that sports betting is available everywhere else. But it still, nevertheless, is a fun occurrence, and that started last night. So where are we at right now? Right now, I am in the midst of my detailed Super Bowl report. I'm about 38 pages into it. Done a deep dive, concluded my deep dive of the 8 prior matchups where Vic Fangio faced off against Patrick Mahomes. As you guys might already know, Patrick Mahomes was 8-0 in those matchups. So he had a lot of success from a win-loss perspective. 6 of them were with the Denver Broncos when Vic Fangio was coaching the Denver Broncos. 2 of them were in the 2023 season when he was the defense coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. One, of course, during the regular season. One was during the postseason. In that postseason game last year in 2023 wild card round that the Chiefs were in, that was a game the Chiefs hosted. That was when it was below freezing temperatures. If you recall, that was the same weekend that they had to move the game, delay the game in Buffalo between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills due to weather. Well, it was super cold down in Kansas City as well. You had all those discussions about the Miami Dolphins wearing the wetsuits and going into Arrowhead Stadium to try to deal with that weather. And it was definitely a storyline. It was cold. The field was frozen. And Vic Fangio in that game played a ton of man coverage. And he blitzed Patrick Mahomes on just around 53% of Mahomes dropbacks. Very abnormal, very atypical for a Vic Fangio defense. It was the first and only time, obviously, he hasn't had a chance to face up against Patrick Mahomes since. But it was the first and only time that they utilized a lot of man coverage and blitzed Patrick Mahomes. Was that game in the last time that these two teams met? Obviously, it was not successful, and I do not think that they were going to be using it again. Exile mentioned the cover 2 versus Mahomes. Fangio uses a lot of 2 high, not nearly as much cover 2. Fangio actually uses very low rates of cover 2 specifically. A lot of cover 4, some cover 6. I'm wondering if they should not use a little bit more cover 1 though. Sorry, cover 3 in this matchup. And that's where I think actually that the Philadelphia Eagles should look to run a little bit more of this game. But it's going to be interesting to see how they end up matching up against Patrick Mahomes, what they decide that they're going to do defensively here in terms of trying to limit what Patrick Mahomes does offensively. The interesting part about it is that what Patrick Mahomes is doing now is very different. And I've got some graphics that I've included, and I might end up tweeting some of these out, putting some of them in an article, but they're included in the report right now. The goal of Vic Fangio's defense is to prevent you from scoring quickly with explosive plays. It's to make you matriculate the ball into the red zone, and then he's very good down inside of the red zone. The key is in the 2019 season, some of the 2020 season, Patrick Mahomes with Tyreek Hill, they were trying to take the top off and explode over the top of you. Now they're not doing that at all. They have the lowest explosive pass rate. They have the highest rate of passes thrown at or behind the line of scrimmage. They are not trying to attack you down the field. They are trying to dink and dunk the football down the field on you. So that's what they've gotten really good at, and that's their goal. So they're not going to be thrown off by Vic Fangio trying to prevent you from having the explosive plays. What this game, in my opinion, might come down to when the Chiefs have the football is can they actually execute down inside of the red zone against Vic Fangio's defense, which is very good inside of the red zone. I remember, and we get talking on this stuff, I end up going on little tangents and we got to refocus here. But I remember when I was working with a specific coordinator and we were game planning against Vic Fangio when he was playing in Denver. And we intentionally built in some shots between 35 and 25 yard line because we knew how great Vic Fangio was down inside of the red zone. So we were looking to put up points and score touchdowns from fringe red zone field position as opposed to once you got down inside of the red zone because just how good Fangio was with defense. And this was back in his days with the Denver Broncos. So it's going to be interesting to see how they perform and execute down inside of the red zone. But certainly it's not going to be a shock to the system of the Kansas City Chiefs with the way that the Philadelphia Eagles and Vic Fangio are playing defense. They've got a lot of experience against them. And this version of the Kansas City Chiefs offense is not going to be thrown off by the fact that they have to be patient and slowly work the ball down the field with shorter passes. That's what they've come to do, and that's what they've gotten great at doing. Okay. Here is the big news of the day. The big news of the day is we are today launching our Super Bowl 59 prop contest. We got the jersey on, the official jersey from the New Orleans Super Bowl, and we are launching the prop contest. What is the Super Bowl 59 prop contest? Super Bowl 59 prop contest is a way for you to win $2,500 worth of cash and prizes for doing nothing but submitting your favorite prop for this game. You pick your favorite prop. If we end up selecting your prop as the winner, you can win up to $2,500 in cash and prizes. You will win $1,000 if the bet actually hits, and you will win all of our betting recommendations for a full calendar year. From the Super Bowl all the way through till next year's Super Bowl, you will win all of those betting recommendations, all our best bets, full website access, basically unlocked for a calendar year, plus the value of a $1,000 bet placed on the game. So here's how you enter. It's quite simple. You identify between now, Friday at noon Eastern, and Monday at noon Eastern, your favorite prop on the game. Whatever prop that you like the best, that you think has the best chance of hitting, one prop. You record a 30 to 60 second clip of yourself talking about this prop. You can either choose to be on camera like I am right now. You hold up your phone, you record yourself, a video of yourself on camera, or you could just use highlights of whatever player that you want to, that your prop is backing. But you have to be narrating the video. You have to tell us what you like about this prop. And the way that you're going to do this, there's going to be more details. Go to sharp.football. You can get more details about this. But the way that you're going to introduce your video is, hello, Sharps. My favorite Super Bowl prop is, list the prop. I think it wins because, list your reasoning, list your logic. 30 to 60 seconds. Do not go longer than 60 seconds because we're going to play the top 10 videos live on our special Super Bowl prop show extravaganza Tuesday night at 7 p.m. We're running a very special Super Bowl edition of the Sharp Football Show this upcoming Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to play the top 10 videos that we receive. So hopefully we receive tens and hundreds of these things. We're going to take the top 10. We're screening them top 10. We're going to play them live on the show, and we're going to react to them. We're going to have a panel of judges, just like on Shark Tank. We're calling it Shark Tank. We're going to have a panel of us up there. It's going to be about 4 or 5 of us that are going to be sitting here reviewing the top 10, voting and deciding which one we like the best live on the show. You guys can tune in 7 p.m. and watch all the entries come up. You can watch our feedback. You can watch us pick the one that we like. Then you can watch us place a $1,000 wager on the prop that we select as the best entry, the most likely entry to win, the best video, the best overall submission. We're going to place $1,000 on that. And the winner who we select, if their prop bet wins, gets all the proceeds of that. We're going to send them all the proceeds from whatever that prop bet was. So you could theoretically pick a plus money prop if you want. Like you could pick a prop where it's plus 210. And guess what? If that bet wins, you'll get $2,100. So you don't have to necessarily pick a minus 110 prop, a minus 150 prop. You don't have to pick a prop where you're going to lose money, but we're not going to take same game parlays. We're not going to take any type of parlay props here. Just your favorite prop bet for the game, singular prop bet. But like I said, it could be plus money. You could do an alt reception prop if you really like it, plus 310 on some guy's number of receptions that he's going to have. You have to convince us, though, in your video that this is the reason this prop is the best one that we're going to receive for us to choose it. But like I said, that could theoretically give you the opportunity to win more than $2,500 worth of cash and prizes if you give us a plus money prop for this contest. So those are the details. You can get more information up at sharp.football. And the way that you submit your video, this is obviously very important. Submit your video via email to support@sharpfootballanalysis.com. support@sharpfootballanalysis.com. You can start submitting your videos now. Go. You can submit them now, or you can submit them all the way through till Monday at noon Eastern. But that is the cutoff, Monday at noon Eastern. So put on your thinking cap. get to work. You got several days. You got the rest of Friday and all weekend. Come up with your favorite video and record a 30 to 60-second pitch and send that over to us, support@sharpfootballanalysis.com. And if your video ultimately is selected, you've got the chance to win around $2,500 worth of cash and prizes, a full calendar year of unlimited website access, plus the benefits of the proceeds of whatever your prop bet is. Okay. Let's see. Any other comments? Any other questions on this? I don't know what Ryan is talking about. How long is this session? Don't know what that means. LOL when you say it. Okay, so we are on board for that contest. And now we are going to bring in our NFL ref expert, Joe Gibbs. We're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl referee and what his impact on this game potentially could be, who he is, who the rest of the crew is, what it means for this game. Let's get started. All right, so welcome in Joe Gibbs. And Joe, we've got a couple of videos queued up, I think based upon our conversations the other day with a little bit of introduction for the referee. But first, why don't you talk a little bit about who is on the Super Bowl 59 and what you think his impact could be, and then we'll get into kind of how long it's been since one of these games and those types of things.
Yeah, so Ron Torbert's the head referee for the Super Bowl. And like every other game, you have a mixture, except for the Buffalo Ravens game, where it was essentially a Carl Shepard's crew. You have Torbert as a head referee. And then that front four, you've got Torbert, Hussey, a Kemp referee, Scott Novak referee, patrolling the line of scrimmage and, you know, the front part of the field. And then on the back end, you've got officials from the Trey Blake, Sean Smith, and Clete Blakeman crews. So I've done a basic analysis this week in my article on sharpfootballanalysis.com. When you do the averages for each crew and then what they would look to enforce, offensive holding is one that would be above and beyond with the makeup of this particular crew. And that doesn't bode well for Kansas City. However, and we've kind of pounded the desk on this, the offensive holding drops in the playoffs. It just does. It's like a regular occurrence. Kansas City was the major beneficiary of this last season when they led the league, but then in the postseason, it essentially disappeared. And this season is somewhat similar in that respect. So I don't see them calling a lot of offensive holding, even though it's in their DNA to do so. Another thing that I looked up last night, and this is not essentially about the referees, it is there's been 21 offensive holding penalties called in the playoffs to date. The Philadelphia Eagles, their defense has generated 9 of those. I think it was 5 against the Packers and 4 against the Rams. So their defense has been getting after it, and a byproduct of that is excess offensive holding penalties on the opponent. And I don't think that happens in the Super Bowl, but if it did, that's a huge advantage for the Eagles. And I'll do more on this next week as we get closer to the game. These guys, very little roughing the passer. So if you see it, will there be a roughing the passer prop? The no, if you can get it at a decent price, and often it opens up at like minus 150, that would be, you know, that would represent some value. Unnecessary roughness. This crew is predisposed to calling that, and unnecessary roughness does get called quite a bit in the Super Bowl. You'd be surprised. Also on sportsmanlike conduct, these guys, they have a penchant for calling that. Defensive pass interference, not so much, but defensive holding, yes. These guys will go above and beyond on defensive holding. And as we all know, the last time the Eagles and Chiefs met in the Super Bowl, it was a defensive holding penalty down the stretch that kind of sealed the deal for Kansas City.
All right, so one thing that you mentioned there, did you say it was 9 of 22 overall penalties for offensive holding? 9 of them have come on offensive lines that were dealing with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Correct. I double-checked it last night. I'm going to go back and do a bit more research just to be certain on that, but that's right now, that's the way it looks. The Eagles have really gotten after it, and they've created chaos on the opposing offensive line. Okay,
and so also in terms of roughing the passer, you think no is a good prop bet for that, depending upon the price. You say it sometimes opens at around minus 150. Obviously, I think last year we might have slipped in one of your prop recommendations to our subscribers from a penalty perspective. It was either last year or the year before. I don't recall which one, but I know that you also will be paying close attention to when they roll out some of these props for the penalties. How frequently would you say that in the Super Bowl you're betting something to do with penalties, some type of penalty or total penalties, that sort of thing?
The roughing the passer one's almost like an annual thing for me. I always bet the no. Like I said, you got to get the right price. I know the South Point here in Las Vegas, they always have it, and it always opens at around minus 150 on the no. But by the time the game kicks off, that thing could be sitting at minus 290, minus 310. So like everything else, the price is the primary thing. You're going to get the right price on it. But I went back and looked. Roughing the passer rarely gets called in the Super Bowl. It just doesn't. You'd be surprised. Unnecessary roughness does, however, and this was interesting, unsportsmanlike conduct is called at a far higher rate than roughing the passer in the Super Bowl.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about, and Positron said you've had some great posts on X for Ron Torbert that have been outstanding. Make sure that you guys are following Joe on X as well, and go to sharpfootballanalysis.com. Like Joe said, he's got an early article up there on Ron Torbert and his impact on this game. He'll get into more detail and more analysis with regard to Ron Torbert's impact up at sharpfootballanalysis.com when the time comes closer to next week and beyond. But we wanted to bring Joe on because we do have this super jam-packed show for you guys next Tuesday night at 7 p.m., reeling off all the props that we wanted to make sure we got enough time in here with Joe to talk about the Super Bowl referee. Now, we always have an internal call. I'll just pull back the curtain here a little bit, Joe. We have an internal call every single week where we discuss some of the angles and some of the things that we think are important for that week. And I always give you the mic and let you talk a little bit about referees and which ones you think are going to be the most impactful on the week during those internal meetings. And the other day when we had this meeting, you were talking about the fact that Ron Torbert had not called a Kansas City Chiefs game for quite some time. And I just want to focus on that subject alone. How many different referees are there? And then you went into a little bit more detail about how there's a few that are kind of like the most elite referees that tend to do more of the either it's the bigger games or just they get on the calls more frequently because they're the more veteran referees. And so the fact that it had been, and you'll share us how long since he's done one of the games for the Chiefs, is a little bit abnormal, is maybe more than a little bit, is quite unusual in your opinion. Why don't you talk about that, and then we'll get into potentially why it was that he hasn't been on a Chiefs game for so long.
Yeah, so there's 17 crews. The last time Torbert was assigned to a Chiefs game was back, if you remember, the 2022 AFC Championship. That was at Arrowhead. And I like Ron Torbert, so this is not me with some anti-Torbert, spin here. He did that game, and it was a even game. It was 2020 in the fourth quarter, and then things unraveled, and it was egregious. We're going to go through some of the stuff later, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But the point being, this whole Kansas City gets the calls. That game was the genesis of it, in my opinion. That was the one that really kicked this whole thing off. It was just a bad game from Torbert and his crew. You had the third down do-over, which we're going to touch on, and Romo and Nance were just going nuts in the booth. So was Zach Taylor on the sideline for Cincinnati. And then
you said, not to interrupt Joe, but you said that was the last time that he's done one of their games. So this has been over 2 years now, right? That he has not done a Chiefs game in over 2 years.
Right.
So how rare is that? Like you said, there's 17 crews, but talk a little bit about how there's some of the senior guys out there, and how rare would it be that one of these guys would not have done a team like the Chiefs in that number of games for over 2 years?
Okay, yeah. So you've got kind of your upper echelon referees. You got Torbert, Hussey, Sheffers. There's a couple of others, but he's in that top 5 as far as the league's concerned. So it would stand to reason that he would get a Chiefs game at some point over the past 2 years. Well, he hasn't. He hasn't gotten anything. That's 41 games if my numbers are correct. So there's only 17 crews. The Chiefs have played 41 games. Torbert's had none of them. So that right there is unusual because you usually get 1 a year at least, sometimes 2. In this case, you may get 3. This will be Torbert's 3rd game this season with the Eagles. So the league, look, they're sensitive to this stuff, I think. And I can't believe it's by accident. The league has just not put Ron Torbert on a Kansas City Chiefs game since that time. They just haven't done it. And the best example I can give you for another team as far as this goes is the Detroit Lions with Brad Allen. If everyone remembers in 2023, that debacle at the end of the game where Brad Allen's crew took away the 2-point conversion, Detroit ended up losing. Well, the league just has never.
That was the Dallas Cowboys game. That was the game
Yes.
against the Cowboys for people.
Yeah, and the league's solution to all this is like, well, we just won't put Brad Allen on a Detroit Lions game. That's easy. And so they've essentially done the same thing here with Ron Torbert. In my opinion, they've done the same thing with Ron Torbert and the Kansas City Chiefs. And here we go. He happens to be on this game, which technically they didn't assign him to this game. If you think about it, the decision on the Super Bowl referee was 3 weeks ago. And at that time, nobody really knew who the participants were going to be. So technically, the league didn't assign him to a Kansas City game. But here we are. Their paths are crossing again just over 2 years later.
So you're saying that Ron Torbert has done 3 games for this will be the 3rd game for the Philadelphia Eagles this season alone. And he's probably done some Eagles games last year, theoretically. You're not sure, but probably around at least 1. And in that span, so that's 3 games in the bag and 1 to come for the Eagles, at least, probably. And yet none for Torbert with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I wanted to bring up that was pretty shocking to me. I was asking you a lot about this on our call the other day. Like, wow, that seems pretty crazy. The odds that this guy has not been assigned to one of those games when he is one of the more upper echelon, more veteran NFL referees. And the Kansas City Chiefs are always in these big marquee games, that this guy would not be put on those games. But it does make sense when you get to the point that, like, if there's an incident with a team where something is a little bit sketchy, the league tends to not put the guy back on that team's game if they can help it and just remove him and have him navigate through the rest of the league, just like with Brad Allen and the Detroit Lions after that call against the Dallas Cowboys with the eligibility of the offensive lineman that checked into the game. Let's go back to that game, and I'm going to have the producer we pulled the clips of sorry if you are a Cincinnati Bengals fan, this is going to be, a little bit of that 1,000-mile stare where you're going to be watching these highlights and thinking what could have been. But let's go ahead and play that in the background, Matt, while we're launching this. Can you do the one where, there you go. Just go ahead and play this. This is the, and turn the volume down for the time being. Okay. So this right here, Joe, just setting the stage. This is going to be the game we're about to see where the Kansas City Chiefs get this 3rd down attempt 3 different times. And so what ends up happening here is they call a 3rd down play on 3rd and 9 once Torbert resets the clock, and the Kansas City Chiefs get tackled short of the 1st down, and then they get a do-over. You'll see on this play that all the teams leave the field. Patrick Mahomes goes and sits down on the bench, more or less. The punter's out on the field. Everybody thinks that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be punting the football. And you can go ahead and play it in the background really quietly, Matt, if you want to. Tyler says PTSD.
Anywhere close to a 1st down.
So, Joe, you're saying that this was the first time that you really think that this was the genesis of when people started getting it was mainly the Bengals fans. Like the Bengals fans really started this because of this game. The Bengals fans were the ones that started like, hey, the Chiefs get all the calls. It was because of this game right here and some of the things that happened, not just on this drive, but immediately thereafter. So the punter's out on the field. Turn the volume back up, Matt.
Right now happening, and they are targeting Kelsey with, double, triple team in some ways, chucking him at the line with it.
The ball was set, the play was shut down, the clock and should not have started. Please reset the game clock to 10 minutes, 24 seconds. Put 10 seconds on the play clock. We will start the play clock on my signal. Game clock will start on the snap. 10:29 on the game clock. It will start on the snap. Thank you.
Evan was right. That was about as high charged, seeing that.
They're going for this, Jim.
Oh, look at this.
They're going to go for this. They're putting the offense back out there. There's 10 seconds on the clock. So they said they're going to put the play clock back to 10.
So,
it's third down. Why did we have fourth down?
Sort this out.
Listening to Ron Torbert, he said that the play was shut down. We may not have heard it here with the noise factor, but the play was shut down prior to that snap. The play runs completely out, and what Ron just said is we're going to reset this. We're basically having a do-over here, guys. We're going to have a third down play do-over.
Zach Taylor can't believe it because there certainly didn't seem any indication, just eyeballing it here, that there was anything other than a play in action.
Second time today. The crowd noise is way up. Now, we couldn't hear because the microphone went out on Tolbert, but I would be livid right here because it's like, how does no one come flying in, right? You're just going to tell us after a full play goes? I mean, this is huge. Zach Taylor is beyond himself, and in some ways, I mean, the truth is, if you can't hear it, you can't hear it, but they still blew the whistle.
How about waving an arm and letting everybody know that the play's dead?
Let's give Mahomes another opportunity.
This is the second third down.
Let's see what happens with it. Mahomes is down at the 24. B.J. Hill, there is a flag, though, in the secondary near midfield.
You can't give him another chance. It's going to be a hold on Eli Apple, 20. He was holding downfield on Scantling.
Holding. Defense number 20, 5-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
Oh, my goodness. This is so incredibly crazy right there what just happened. You got an extra play. You end up getting the sacks. You stop him twice. But Eli Apple has the tough assignment because that's the only guy you really can go to on the outside. But he holds.
Now, Joe,
right
this
there,
is,
Jim.
I mean, this
That's
is a
good
hold.
call.
This is, that's, to me, that's definitely a hold. But you can see how
this is being received up in Cincinnati. They've got to be
you're livid.
out of their mind with.
I didn't hear the whistle, did you?
No, I didn't hear it.
Okay, pause it right here, Matt.
Twice today.
Now, they showed the graphic where right there at that point, which we'll talk about momentarily. Can you rewind this video like 5 seconds, Matt? Is it possible to do that? Or there we go. See how they popped up that little bug there for the penalties? So the Chiefs had 4 penalties to this point in time, and the Cincinnati Bengals had 5 penalties for 30 yards. But we'll go through some of the other penalties that end up happening after this. But Joe, basically, this was the game where Jamar Chase comes out afterwards and says, this is the third down opportunity for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was pretty mad about it. That was a penalty. That was a holding call. So that's the other thing when we're talking about these penalties, some people get upset that they're throwing these penalties, but the fact of the matter is, if it is a penalty, it should be a penalty. So that's one of the things I've always stood by is call the things that should be called. I understand you could call holding on a lot of plays. And so like you're going to what do they call it? Swallow your whistles on all of them consistently for both teams, or you're going to call them. And one of the last plays of the game, which we'll show momentarily, where Patrick Mahomes is scrambling out by the sideline, there was multiple holds on the offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs that probably should have been called, but what ended up getting called is just the roughing the passer, which was a good call when Mahomes runs out of bounds there, and it sets up the final game-winning field goal for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Joe, this is kind of what sort of started the initial. You could see how that was a debacle with Torbert, and the announcing crew didn't know what the heck was going on here. The teams didn't know what was going on. And you could see why that was sort of a cluster for Torbert and would have raised some flags for the league as to this guy's handling of the way that specific situation played out there.
Yeah, I mean, the announcement, the disbelief with Romo and Nance was great. It really puts into perspective how it was in real time. And yeah, like we've said, that was the genesis of this whole thing with the Chiefs get all the calls and whatnot. And if you think about it, that game led the Chiefs to the Super Bowl against these Eagles, and that was ended essentially with a defensive holding penalty in the dying seconds of the game, and that just compounded on the back of this game. So those 2 games right there were really what kickstarted this whole thing.
So then, why don't you play in the background also the clips of what happened from there? So what ends up happening after they get the first down on that penalty, the Kansas City Chiefs end up punting the ball back to the Cincinnati Bengals. And from that point onwards, you see there's 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. I believe on every single series, the Bengals have the ball. They then punt it back to the Chiefs. On that series that the Bengals have the ball, a penalty is called against the Bengals. Then the Chiefs have the ball, a penalty is called on the Bengals. Then they punt it back and the Bengals have the ball, a penalty is called on the Bengals. And then they punt the ball back and the Chiefs have the ball and a penalty is called on the Bengals. There's 4 more penalties, one on each of the next 4 series. We'll run through them here. I'll go ahead and play it in the background, Matt. That ends up ultimately allowing the Kansas City Chiefs to, their trading field position is basically what ends up happening here. So you have this play. So it's a 1st and 10 play at this point that was flagged, and they call an offensive holding, which to me, when they show the replay back, I mean, does look like a holding. Again, there's holding calls that were ultimately not called on the Bengals later, but if I'm being honest here, to me this looks like a holding call against Chris Jones. They'll show the replay here in a second. So I can't hate this flag, but here's the replay of it. What do you think, Joe?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's holding, absolutely. The issue is you can call that every other play.
Right. So they call that play. Pause it here, Matt. So the Chiefs the Bengals end up going from a 1st and 10 and then a 2nd and 10 because it was an incomplete pass. Now they're backed up. I believe it becomes, what is it here? It becomes a 1st and 19 based upon where they were to the end zone. They were at the 18-yard line, so half the distance to the goal. They got a 1st and 19 as a result of that play. So again, the field position game, they're forced to punt the ball. So Kansas City's got the ball back here, and they're driving to try to kick the go-ahead field goal. Go ahead and play this.
2 receivers on the run, pass incomplete. Hilton is going to be called for interference.
Let's hear the volume on this one.
Pass interference. Defense number 21. Spot foul. Automatic first down.
How about it, Gene?
You know what? When you look and see the hand around the waist like that, you do want to see a significant turn as well. It's not a big foul to me, in my opinion, guys. There's some movement there, but that's not a big hook and turn, in my opinion.
Okay, so that gave the Chiefs an automatic first down off of that pass interference. They do not get a score off of that play. They end up punting the ball back. Pause it right here. So now you're sitting with a 2nd and 7. Again, we're playing the field position game. In order for the Bengals to win this game, they got to march down the field and kick a field goal. So it's a 2nd and 7, and we're going to see an intentional grounding call here where it looks like maybe it is an intentional grounding call. That pass interference, pretty ticky-tack in your opinion on the prior play, Joe, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And the ref analyst came in and agreed with you. This one, it does look like P. Ryan's in the area, but technically maybe it is intentional grounding. Go ahead and play this one through.
Always have Higgins down at the bottom. Again, they were in on him.
So he's trying. You can see from the end zone angle, he is trying to throw. But the interesting part is they don't throw the penalty right away. There's this.
1:22 to go, and Joe seems to be shaken up.
Yeah, right here, that's what happens late in these games. You find that Chris Jones gets a one-on-one, pushes it back, and good throwaway at the end. And a flag comes in.
Oh, yeah, flag back at the 10-yard line.
This is intentional grounding, I think, Jim. They come this late sometimes. They come, they talk, they meet up with each other. This is a killer call for Cincinnati because it's a loss of down, Gene. If it is.
Most definitely, Tony, it is. And they're looking to see both receivers release, go
there
downfield.
There was no receiver in the vicinity of the pass. It's intentional grounding by the offense number 9. Penalties half the distance to the goal. Loss of down. Third down.
This is
Gene,
really
you've had a
bad.
chance to look at it. Was the right call?
Yeah, it is, because both receivers release and they're just running vertically. There's no one in the backfield like in the normal play when you see the dump because of potential screens happening or something. Everyone's gone, and now he throws directly to the ground under pressure in the pocket. Result is intentional grounding.
I thought I saw Pirine in the area there.
Yeah, he was.
So pause it right here, Matt. So Joe, your take thus far. I mean, you haven't gone back and watched all of these clips, but we pulled them to just show on here. At this point in time, like, your take on the game.
It's just, yeah. I mean, obviously it started with that third down do-over, and it just compounded from there. It snowballed, and I mean, you see the frustration even with the commentary crew. Obviously, Zach Taylor on the sidelines. It was a really badly officiated fourth quarter, and yeah, I mean, it just was. And so yeah, the Leafs kept Torbert and the Chiefs apart since that time.
So then we've got the final play here, the final sequence here. So obviously, again, we're talking about field position. So as a result of that intentional grounding, it set up the Cincinnati Bengals, because it's a loss of down penalty as well, a 3rd and 16 at their own 10-yard line. Right, so that was a massive penalty to call that intentional grounding. Otherwise, it would have been a 3rd and 7 at almost their 20-yard line. So that's something that is a long shot, but doable. 3rd and 16 at your own 10. Now you're looking to set the opponent up with like great field position, potentially with very little time left in the game to kick a game-winning field goal, and that's exactly what ends up happening. So now here are the Chiefs. They are at the 47-yard line of the Cincinnati Bengals with just 17 seconds left. They need to kick a field goal to advance. Go ahead and play this one. Pay attention to the offensive linemen of the Cincinnati Bengals, of the Kansas City Chiefs with this pass rush, specifically Trey Hendrickson here. Definitely looks like there was a potential for a holding. Another offensive lineman gets dumped right in front of Torbert. Patrick Mahomes runs out, gets shoved out of bounds, and the flag is thrown a little bit late. Nance was yelling, and a flag comes in late. And
The only time he had to use the legs fully, he turned on and he put it on himself, and that's going to put them in position to get
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, defense number 58.
And that 15 yards
from the end of the play.
is going to take this all the way into an inside of about 40-yard field goal attempt to go to the Super Bowl.
all right, so you can pause this now.
Oh, and right there.
Okay, and you can just bring us back up now. If you guys can comment about somebody saying the YouTube stream ended. Is anybody seeing us up still on YouTube or not? Maybe we played too much video from the league, and Goodell's like, this is enough of this. Let me see. Yeah, I am seeing stream unavailable.
Interesting.
They said policy violations and they shut it down. So Matt, you could just record this and you can then put this back up, compile it back when we end up posting the YouTube. But the bottom line here with this, if you're still watching us at X, that's the only place that you guys can be watching us right now. The main reason for showcasing this is just that this was potentially the reason why Ron Torbert has not done a Chiefs game since this game. The Cincinnati Bengals fans after this game were absolutely livid. Me watching as a neutral observer, it's hard to argue with some of those penalties. A couple of them, I could say, the intentional grounding or the pass interference were questionable calls. A couple of them were more egregious and obvious calls, but there were other calls on the Bengals that you could have called and you didn't call. The bottom line here is not to go back and say, was this wrong of Torbert to do? It's that whatever the league thinks, whatever we think doesn't matter. The league decided after that game not to put Torbert on any Kansas City Chiefs game since that point in time, which Joe is a referee expert, and Joe is saying that is extremely abnormal for a ref as good as Torbert to not do a Kansas City Chiefs game. And what'd you say, 41 games since? For over 2 years now, they had not put him on a Kansas City Chiefs game after that game. So it was something the league must have seen in that game that they were like, we do not want this guy to be back up on, and it looks like we're back live on YouTube. So we're good to go there. Okay. So Joe, did I get that right? Like I wanted to kind of share your perspective on all of this because you're the ref expert and you're the one who had all these comments on our last internal call. I just wanted to lay it out for people as we head into the Super Bowl, considering he's doing this game. Did I get that right with regards to some of the observations you had about this game and the unusualness surrounding it?
Yeah, you're right on the money. The league is telling us by their actions that obviously that game was egregious, and their solution, as we mentioned with the Cowboys, Lions, and Brad Allen, is to just keep Torbert and the Chiefs separated. That way you don't have to rehash any of this stuff. And if there's a bad call that goes the Chiefs' way or against the Chiefs' opponent, then people would go back and point to this particular game. The league has essentially avoided that, but here we are for Super Bowl 59, and Torbert and the Chiefs' paths cross once again after 2 years.
So it's going to be really interesting to see. Hopefully, there's nothing. None of us want anything silly to happen in this game from a refereeing perspective. We want a clean game. Winner gets decided on the field by the players and the coaches, and that's it. So hopefully that's the case. I will tell you one thing, Joe. With what I'm planning on doing for actually watching the Super Bowl, I am not going to be sitting here live tweeting every single clip or highlight from the game. So if you guys are expecting to get my instant analysis like I normally do on X of live tweeting the game, it's not what I'm going to be doing for this year's Super Bowl. So, I'll just tell you in advance, don't take my silence for anything other than the fact that I'm watching the game and I'm focused on the game and I'm live betting the game and I'm hanging out with people. So I'm not going to be doing my normal thing. But Joe, I guess maybe this upcoming week, you might have a take on the game itself from a side total perspective as it relates to the referee. We're not going to get into that right now with you. You've still got a little bit more work to do on the game, and you got your article to finalize. So we'll wait to get back to that. And maybe you will have an idea or thought on the side or the total or a derivative bet or a prop as it relates to penalties. And you can share any of those things with our audience as it relates to the Super Bowl 59 bets in your Super Bowl 59 article. It's currently up at sharpfootballanalysis.com, but it's not finalized yet. Joe's going to add a little bit more to it, and then we'll be sharing that out with everybody out there. Anything else you want to add, Joe, before we let you go?
Yeah, there's a question here that asked if I was expecting Torbert to be the Super Bowl referee, and I wasn't. We talked about this throughout the course of the season. I thought it was either going to be Hockley or Craig Rolstad because they kept giving Rolstad all these big games. He was getting like every week a marquee game. I'm like, well, that may be, but I was wrong. I didn't expect Torbert to be the referee.
So that's a surprise. I'm going to scroll back through here and just tackle a couple of other questions or comments from people while we were going through some of those videos. Ian said, too many holding calls on the Eagles O-line will most likely slow down the running. Do you think that we might get, I know you said that they tend to call fewer holding penalties here. That typically would help the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you see any impact for the Eagles offensive line if they're calling fewer holding penalties?
In theory, if they call fewer holding penalties, it helps both offenses. I kind of like this game to be higher scoring in large degree because of that. I don't see a whole lot of. I don't see more than maybe 2 offensive holding penalties being called, and in all likelihood, one of those would be declined. So it helps both teams, but more so Kansas City because it's been their number one issue for the past 2 years, and if you can get that issue essentially removed from the penalty box, then that's great for you.
Tyler says Torbert is a complete joke. Called the phantom holding against the Bengals in the Super Bowl too. Was that Torbert?
Yeah, that was Torbert. That was the Rams and the Bengals. Correct. There was a holding call on Cooper Kupp. Yeah.
Was that the year? That was the year prior to. That was the year prior to that AFC Championship game with the Bengals there.
Correct. So I think we've pretty much, come to the conclusion that Cincinnati Bengals fans are, not big fans of Ron Torbert. No.
Right. He probably didn't get many Christmas cards from the Cincinnati Bengals fans. Exile earlier said Joe Gibbs ref stats oftentimes directly predict the ref's actions in the game. One of my only Twitter follows is Joe. So Exile, a big fan of yours, Joe. Brandon previously said Joe's ref gems help me sound smarter when talking ball with the bros. So we always like that, helping Joe out with helping sound smarter. That's what the goal is of the show. So that's great to hear. Okay, well, that about does it for Joe. Thank you so much for your insight into this game and to Ron Torbert and his history with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be interesting to see his first calls of the game with Kansas City for just over 2 years now, being this game here. Wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for Joe Gibbs. Joe studies all of these things. Joe studies histories with the refs and the players. So we're learning something new every day when we do talk to Joe Gibbs. So make sure that you guys are following him on X and reading his articles up at Sharp Football Analysis. All right. Do want to get back to one quick thing as it relates to another contest that we're holding over at sharpfootballanalysis.com, and that is the free props contest. We've already listed 15 props up at sharpfootballanalysis.com, and you can just go through and answer the questions. It's like a little quick survey. Hit yes or no, hit higher or lower, go through the 15 questions for the Super Bowl, pick everything that you think will happen for your chance to win. And we're going to give away, I think it's close to $2,000 in prizes. So it's the free prop contest. Go to sharp.football, go in your browser, sharp.football, and search for the free prop contest. And it's just 15 quick questions where you can have your shot at winning up to $2,000 in cash and prizes. We're going to be awarding those, obviously, at the conclusion of the Super Bowl with regard to the way that those 15 results actually occur. And some of them are, I want to say it might be Gatorade color or coin toss or who scores first, but there's also some player props that are mixed in there. It's your typical free contest that a lot of different websites like to do for props as it relates to the Super Bowl. But in this case, it's a super quick survey. It's very simple to enter, and you have a chance to win up to $2,000. That is separate let me go back. That is separate from our very special Sharp Tank podcast that we are doing for the Super Bowl on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., where all you have to do is submit one prop that you think is going to win in video format for your chance to win at least $2,500 in cash and prizes, depending upon what type of payout you're getting on the prop that you are recommending. Are you recommending a prop that is even money? Then you'll get $2,500 in cash or prizes. Are you recommending a prop that has plus money? You get more than $2,500. But we're going to select one of the entries, one that we think is the best, that has the most likely chance of winning from our panel of experts. We're going to review them all. We're going to decide which one of you is most likely to win. We're going to place a $1,000 bet live on the show next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So what you need to do, 3 things. Number 1, pick your prop and record a quick video for it. Number 2, submit that 30 to 60-second video to support@sharpfootballanalysis.com. Support@sharpfootballanalysis.com between now and next Monday at noon Eastern. And the third thing you need to do is tune in next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern to our live Super Bowl extravaganza show. We're going to give you 2 full hours of Super Bowl analysis, deep dives into all the action from a betting perspective, a props perspective, but also a game breakdown perspective. What we think is going to happen. You're going to have Rich Rebar, Ray Summerlin, Pam Maldonado, myself, maybe some other guests throughout there. We're all going to be coming on, giving you guys our best expectation for what we think is going to happen when the Eagles have the football, when the Eagles are trying to run, when the Eagles are trying to pass, when the Chiefs have the football, when the Chiefs are trying to run, when the Chiefs are trying to pass. We're going to break down all aspects of the game from a matchup perspective. We're going to run through what our favorite prop bets are for the game. We're going to run through all of the top 10 Super Bowl prop videos. We whittle down the hundreds that we receive to the 10 best, and those 10 best will play live on air. We'll have instant and immediate reaction to them. We'll decide immediately on the air, like Shark Tank, which one we think is best. We will then pick that winner. We will then place the bet, and then we will hope and keep our fingers crossed that that bet actually comes through so that you can collect the money there. But it's going to be a lot of fun. That's next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So tune in for that. If you are interested in, as I mentioned, I think I'm 38 pages into my Super Bowl report. Was just breaking down Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' familiarity with Vic Fangio and that side of the ball. I've already broken down the Philadelphia Eagles side of the ball when they have the ball on offense and what they are likely to expect and get out of Steve Spagnuolo. And I think Steve Spagnuolo has some tricks up his sleeve, some changes that he has to make, some curveballs that he has to throw in here. I will go through what I think some of those are going to be for the Super Bowl. But in my opinion, this guy is a total genius. He should be a head coach because he's that damn good at calling defense. You give him 2 weeks to prepare, and it's very difficult to have a lot of success against his style of defense. He is going to try to shut down this Philadelphia Eagles offense. And is he going to attack the run game or the pass game? We'll dig into that. But one of the things that I can tell you is over the last 2 Super Bowls, Steve Spagnuolo has basically worked miracles with his defense in shutting down run games. He has gone up against 2 elite rushing attacks in the last 2 Super Bowls. Both of them were very different, though. The Philadelphia Eagles in 2022 had a running quarterback, had 2 running backs, Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, neither of which was like super elite, but playing behind a great offensive line with a great scheme with a running quarterback. And all those guys were productive. And the Philadelphia Eagles collectively, even if you get rid of the Jalen Hurts rushes, had one of the best running games in the NFL in 2022. And Steve Spagnuolo absolutely neutered that run game in the Super Bowl. And then you go to the next year, and now they're going up against the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 49ers have a very different rushing attack than the Philadelphia Eagles. The San Francisco 49ers offensive line isn't elite like the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line was. San Francisco 49ers do not have a running quarterback like the Philadelphia Eagles did. The San Francisco 49ers, unlike Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, they have a stud running back in Christian McCaffrey. So a very different from a personnel, from a strengths and weaknesses. The 49ers run game was very different than the Philadelphia Eagles run game. And yet, we saw Steve Spagnuolo come in and neuter the San Francisco 49ers run game completely. I want to say Christian McCaffrey, I have the numbers here, but I was up till 4 a.m. last night, and I don't remember exactly where I ended with the numbers, but I want to say Christian McCaffrey averaged 3.6 yards per carry in that Super Bowl. I'm going to that section. What are we at here? Trying to pull up the exact number. Eagles running backs in the 2022 Super Bowl had 2.6 yards per carry, minus 0.32 EPA per rush, and a 35% success rate. That was the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2022 Super Bowl. And the Christian McCaffrey was, 3.6 yards per carry on 25 rushes. His longest run that Super Bowl in 2023, last year's Super Bowl, was 11 yards, minus 0.33 EPA per rush, and a 52% success rate. Christian McCaffrey himself was 41% success. They had some short yardage runs from like Kyle Juszczyk or Eli that were converting. So the success rate overall for the team was higher, but Christian McCaffrey, 3.6 yards per carry and a long of 11 yards. He completely shut down that run game as well. So Steve Spagnuolo has a history of, in the Super Bowl, going up against a top-tier run defense and shutting them down, whether it's a singular running back like McCaffrey, in this case Saquon Barkley, or it's a team with a good offensive line with decent running backs like the Philadelphia Eagles were in the 2022 season. He's done a great job. So that's going to be a big part of this game because the Philadelphia Eagles have massively changed the style of offense that they are. And I talk a lot about this. We're now at page 33 in the report, but I talk a lot about how the Philadelphia Eagles are just so different than they were in the 2022 Super Bowl. A totally different style of team than they were in the 2022 Super Bowl. Just such a massive devotion to the run this season. And so it's going to be very fascinating to see how Steve Spagnuolo fares in that. Ian, I talk about inside zone. Ian, I talk about the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense versus the 2022 edition of the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I talk about how the Kansas City Chiefs defense is trending so much worse right now against the run, and what they have given up over the last several weeks to running backs, and how concerning that theoretically could be. Also, this Philadelphia Eagles team and how they should look to attack the Kansas City Chiefs defense, in part using a little bit more of their 11 personnel and leaning into that because of some of the issues that the Kansas City Chiefs defense has defending 11 personnel. So I go into all these details in all these different sections. It's a very easy report to read through because I've broken up the sections very simply. And I look to be complete with this report probably by I'll say 6 a.m. Saturday morning, because I'm going to be working throughout the rest of the day today and overnight until hopefully I'm done. But I expect this to be out in clients' hands at some point on Saturday, my report to be done. Now, that being said, I take that back. I will have it to the editor, Ray, by Saturday. Ray wants to go through and edit the report for me, so I'll give him that opportunity to do it. So if we're going to be realistic, it won't be till probably Sunday or first thing Monday morning that it will be in your hands. If you want it in your hands Sunday afternoon or Monday morning when we are finished with the report, the way that you could do that is by jumping on board for our Super Bowl package. Use the code SHOW50 to get $50 off the Super Bowl package. It's up at sharpfootballanalysis.com right now. I'm 25-9 this postseason, a 74% in all of our sides and totals bets. I am 27-10 lifetime on the Super Bowl for sides and totals. That's 72%. Been doing this, I want to say it's 19th year for the Super Bowl. We're 27-10 on the key wagers. We already have some props that have been released. We're going to be adding to the prop recommendations over the course of the weekend. I'm sure we're going to have another wave of props that gets sent out to you guys, a fresh wave of Super Bowl props. And then next week is going to be about doing media and doing Super Bowl props. Finding those edges, finding those values, sharing some with you publicly, but also sharing a lot of them privately with our subscribers. So I'm really looking forward to once I'm done with this report, because I focus so much on the angles that I uncover with the report as to how I want to bet the Super Bowl props. And so I could give you, like, I talked a while on the Tuesday show at noon Eastern about the matchups and what's the most key and what I think could happen in some spots when the Chiefs have the ball or when the Eagles have the ball. And we could have just closed up shop and ended there and bet some props and enjoyed the game. But I want to do the deep dive so that I feel like I've done everything I can from an analysis perspective to both predict the outcome of this game and to give you guys useful insight that you might want to have as you're preparing for the game in your mind and thinking about what you might want to bet on the game. And then, of course, that gives me some insights into some of the specific niche props that I want to dig into, because there's so many more niche markets. So looking through a lot of them last night, especially as I talking to some of the guys that were out there at the Westgate, hitting those props when the market was opening there. I was on the phone discussing some of the prop bets that were available, as well as what some of the lines were here at other books like at DK or at FanDuel, compared to the prices that were there at the Westgate. So there's more props that we're going to be getting into throughout the course of the weekend. Really looking forward to it. Best time of the year. We'll be back on Tuesday. So just mark this down, put a reminder, sticky note for yourself, set a calendar announcement on your phone or whatever you call it. Tuesday night at 7 p.m. is a special Super Bowl edition of the show. We will not be having a show next Friday. Tuesday night will be the show. We will compile everything, all of our analysis into that show to get you ready. So if you want one singular show to watch, that's going to be the deepest dive, the best information, and a ton of prop bets that you can make, tune in next Tuesday night live with us right here on both X and YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We will be back to break down all the analysis as it relates to the Super Bowl and get you our final takes on it, with plenty of time for you to get in all these bets before the big game happens the following Sunday. With that said, hope that you guys enjoyed the show, the chat with Joe Gibbs. We'll see what was going on there with the video getting pulled down briefly from YouTube, and our producer will have to clean that up. But we'll see you guys next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Good luck until then.